Welcome to another exciting episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, a place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I am your host, Randolph Love III, and we do have another exciting entrepreneur and business owner on the podcast today. But before we bring him on, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Shield Wolf Strongholds, a wealth growth and protection company when it comes to employee benefits, when it comes to retirement planning, when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to life insurance. If your plan ain't Shield Wolf, your plan ain't strong. If you want you and your employees to retire higher than you would have prior, make sure you visit www.shieldwolfstrong.com or text retire now to +1 904-822-4262, 904-822-4262 to get a free PDF on retirement resources. Now, our guest. Jon Hord spent years as a high-achieving professional. While feeling like a reactive, stressed-out parent at home, he wanted to be present with his kids, but didn't know how. His short temper and the missed moments were slowly turning him into a father he promised himself he'd never become. Through coaching, reflection, and real inner work, he learned how to change. He rebuilt himself by breaking old patterns, mastering emotional regulation, and reconnecting with his children. Now he guides other driven, busy, high-achieving fathers through the same transformation. He's the creator of the Engaged Father Project, an 8-week program that helps fathers shift from reactive to intentional without sacrificing their careers. Jon, welcome to the Entreprenudist Podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that warm introduction. I do appreciate it.
Definitely. I appreciate you. How long have you been doing what you're currently doing now?
I launched the Engaged Father Project back in the spring, so getting close to a year now.
Okay, getting close to a year. And a lot of times when you're doing something like this, it's probably feels like dog years. Is there nothing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole path for me has been about learning, exploration, growth, really challenging myself to overcome a lot of hurdles that, if I think back, maybe 10 years, I thought I would never put myself in a position where I would be working for myself. And so every day brings something new, but the challenge is part of the fun, quite honestly.
So it's recognizing the fun and the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you set off on this path to start your own business, you're doing it with a goal in mind, like this end state, and it seems really attractive. And that's, why somebody might kind of shove off and start to go out into this open water, if you will. But I've learned over time that like the magic in like the quote unquote success, if you will, really is like it's a daily thing, right? Like if you're just doing this, if you're just grinding to hit some finish line that's out there, then in my opinion, it might not be the right path, because, starting your own business and launching it and growing it and marketing it and all that stuff, it's hard and it takes time. So if you can't find a way to enjoy that process, then I think it's going to be an exceptionally bumpy path for people.
Oh, yeah. You really have to recognize that the journey is the destination. Even though that sounds so weird, well-known motivational speaker Jim Rohn, he said his mentor told him, "I want you to earn $1 million." He said, "I want you to earn $1 million. And after you earn that $1 million, I don't care what you do with it. You can give it all away. You can throw it against the wall if you want to. I want you to earn $1 million because of the man that you have to become to earn $1 million." And yeah, it really is a part of that journey, that process.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I love what you said.
What is a reactive parent?
Phew. So to give you an example, like when things get hard. So if you're a dad, or even if you're a mom out there listening, you have a moment with your kids where it's stressful, right? It's conflict, it's tension, things aren't going the way that you want it to be. We as human beings, we have a tendency to just react, like reflexively, right? We don't put a lot of intentional thought into what comes next. It really is, we're acting based off of kind of our past, like what we saw other people do, how we saw them handle stress, our own fears that we have, and in our desires. And like all of that is sort of like hardwired in us. And so something happens and we just react, right? There's not a lot of thought. That's what I would define as a reactive parent.
When did you realize that you had those traits and that it was something that wasn't beneficial?
Yeah, when I look back on it now, I can see, a lot of instances when I was reactive. There are a couple that kind of come to mind. And one, I didn't get my evidence of my reactivity until like a couple years later. And it was when my son used the phrase, "How dare you?" to somebody. And my son said that, and he was probably 7. And I realized exactly where he learned that. And it was from me. And like, I heard him say it, and he said it like in kind of a joking way, but it made my ears ring, because it took me back. I remember exactly where I was when I said that to him. When I said that, he was probably 5. And like, I say this with a lot of regret. I'm not proud of the dad that I was in that moment of conflict with him, where I felt like how I was being treated was unfair. I'm a dad. I'm working hard. I'm sacrificing. I have all these good intentions to provide for my kids, and I want to be a good dad. And like in that moment, I felt like whatever was being served to me wasn't fair. Like I didn't deserve that. And so I said, how dare you talk to me like that? And those words, in my opinion, are meant for another adult. Those aren't meant to fall in the ears of a 5-year-old. But I had so much going on inside me that a 5-year-old kid was able to bring that out of me. And so it's a moment that I'm not proud of at all. And it's, I'm on this path to not put myself in that situation anymore when I'm reacting. And instead of like that reflexive action, now I respond, and I respond with intention.
Yeah, it a lot of when it comes to change, it has to do with self-awareness. And it must be very because you think about a kid picking up a repeated trait or habit. It's one thing to say, all right, I did that once, and if I keep doing it again, my very impressionable child will pick this up. So I need to make sure to only do repeated good habits instead of repeated bad habits. But it must have been shocking to realize that one instance was enough to make this a part of this child's lexicon.
Yeah, it was jarring, to say the least. And like, there's a lot of science about how the brain forms in young kids, and especially, from when they're a newborn up until about the time when they're 6, where, what they observe basically just gets sort of like hard coded in their brain as true, right? Like the discerning part of their brain doesn't start to come online around 6 or 7 years old. And that's when they can start to question things like, is that how I'm supposed to be? Or is that really true? And so in those early formative years with kids, we need to be especially careful of how we're showing up for our kids, because they just see that as the way a dad is supposed to be, right? And I've made major changes in my life since then, and I'm working on undoing some of those bad habits that I modeled for them. I get feedback from my kids now. That's one of the things that I really believe in, is being vulnerable as a dad, which like that role of being a dad is, like an authority figure to our kids, but I don't want to wield that authority. Like, I don't know if I've ever said because I said so in the past couple of years since I've made these changes in my life, because in my opinion, that's a cheap escape route for a dad. That means like I'm uncomfortable with explaining why this is my answer. And so instead of doing something that makes me uncomfortable, I'm just going to say it's because I said so. So I take it the other way, where I'm vulnerable. And I think it's okay to tell our kids like, hey, like sometimes I don't do the right thing, or I don't have all the right answers. Or if you go through a particularly like tough moment with your kids, and like after the dust settles and like our emotions have kind of come back down to baseline, I'll go and ask my kids, I'll be like, hey, give me a grade. Like, that was tough, right? And they're like, yeah, it was tough. I'll ask them, how did I do? Like, give me a grade. And there's been times when, I thought I just did like, okay, could have done better. And my kids have been like, you know what? You did good. And like, they refer to old dad, like the old version of me, which like fills my heart with joy, because they're able to see that if there's an old me, there must be a new me. Right. And so that's like proof that the work that I'm doing is paying off. But they're like, oh yeah, like the old version of you, like you probably would have gotten pretty upset about that, but you handled this really well. I'm like, that feels great. And then on the flip side, there's been times where I'm like, hey, how'd I handle that? And inside I'm like, I did pretty good. And my daughter will be like, I gave you a C+. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate that honesty, but I love opening up that conversation with my kids, being vulnerable, letting them have a voice to like communicate feedback to this authority figure that's in their life. I'm a big proponent of that.
Oh yeah, over communication, and even in the industries, the highest form of compensation is communication. Whoever's responsible for communicating the terms or communicating the deal typically are the ones who receive the most commissions and lucrative salaries. Speaking of commission and lucrative salaries, a lot of times that requires a lot of hours. I imagine that the fathers that you work with, and maybe even yourself at that time when your child was 5-year-old, was probably putting in a lot of hours. Have you found that hours work compared to bills owed equals reactive parent, or is there no real correlation?
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there could be a correlation with that. The more hours that somebody works, the more energy they are investing into the professional side of their life. And I'm a believer that we only have so many units of energy to access in a given day. And that's physical energy, but also like mental and emotional energy or capacity. And so if, let's say, like we have 10 units of emotional capacity for a day, and if we're working so many hours and we're under so much pressure and we're managing so many things that we use 9 of those in our workday, that means that we're bringing one of those units home to deal with home life. And, whether you're a single parent and you're doing things by yourself for your kids, or you've got a partner, that's not a lot of energy to manage a household. And so if that last energy unit gets depleted, well, now you don't have the mental and emotional capacity to parent. And like when you're just depleted, that's when a lot of times like an ugly version of ourselves can show up, right? Like that's the highly reactive and agitated and frustrated parent that can show up. And I choose to believe that there's no parent out there that wants to be angry and frustrated with their kids. But a lot of times we just don't have the energy, or we just don't know another way to do it. So, to answer your question, like our output when it comes to our job can definitely have a direct reflection on how we're showing up as a parent.
Mm-hmm. And depending on whether a person is a W-2 worker or 1099 or a consultant, sometimes that high achiever status isn't directly related to hours put in. But even though they're thriving as a high achiever, whether it takes them a lot of hours or not, they seem like they're struggling at home. What do you think is the reason that these high achieving fathers fall up into this cycle?
Well, I mean, it's no mystery that a lot of males, a lot of fathers, they assume this role of being a provider, right? And I say that with like no disrespect towards women and their ability to like be incredible professionals. But I think it's something like, if you look back over time, males were the provider, right? Like if you go back, I don't know, to the 50s, the guys would go to work and the mothers would stay home and raise their kids. And so there's a lot of like generational momentum that kind of carries forward into today. And I think a lot of dads put this pressure on themselves to be the provider. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of, if you provide more, you're being a better provider. And then that means that you have more value to the family because you are providing more. When I think that in all reality, like if you were to ask, our kids, like, what do you want from your dad? Do you want him to work more and be a better provider, or do you want more time with him? And I think a lot of kids are going to say, you know what, I want that time. I don't care about the expensive things. I want time with my dad, and I want my dad to be emotionally available for me as the kid.
Yeah, that's and I imagine with your firsthand experience and with the people that you work with, you have a way of balancing that. I know sometimes to a man that might consider himself a logical thinker, you might be like, well, yes, you want more time with me, and yes, you're saying verbally that my time is more valuable than the materials. But I saw what happened those 3 months that I wasn't producing it as much as I used to. Maybe something happened, and I got a glimpse into what the world looks like when I'm not providing as much as I typically do. And it was only a couple months, but I saw what happened. So even though I hear you saying out of your mouth that you want more time with me, I know that might mean I'm bringing in less income, and I know that less income would mean I'm bringing in less materials, and I believe I saw a glimpse. What do you say to that?
Help me understand the question, Randolph. Like a glimpse of what?
Okay, so for example, have you ever heard anybody say, "You're giving me mixed signals"?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that before? That phrase?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we might have a lag in time. Okay, yeah. So usually when somebody says you're giving me mixed signals, it usually means that you're trying to reconcile what they're saying versus what they're doing, right? This person says that they like me, but whenever I call them, they don't pick up the phone. They're giving me mixed signals, right? Now, I imagine being a father that is typically a provider. And let's say for whatever reason, this father got laid off. And for whatever reason, 2 to 3 months, this father couldn't provide financially at the level that he typically did. And during that time frame, he may have gotten a glimpse of what it's like to not bring in the money like you used to. Maybe tempers happen faster than what they usually do from a spouse or from the children. Maybe usually I come home and there's my plate is already done, and maybe that plate isn't done like it usually is. And in my mind, whether it's true or not, it's because I'm not during this downtime, I wasn't able to provide. So now that I've recovered, I hear you saying that you want more time, but in that time when I was down, I was at the house more. I might have gotten some attitude, or So I'm saying, is that not a conversation or an experience that you've had personally, or somebody that you work with, to where, all right, maybe you think like that, or that's not true, or is it true, and how do you handle that? Did I clarify it, or did I make it more complicated?
No, that's helpful, Randolph. And I think, you talked about communication, which is like, I think for that scenario that you laid out there, that having good, honest dialogue between all the parties involved here, whether it's a husband and a wife, or it's a husband and some kids that are old enough to have, a meaningful conversation with, it's about not making assumptions. Like if the father is assuming, man, things are struggling and it's because I'm not able to provide, that can be a pretty dangerous assumption. And like that assumption would be made in support of that previous belief that the father feels that my value to this family is directly correlated to my ability to provide and how much I provide. If you want to tie your own self-worth and your value to something like that, I can't tell you not to. I know that I don't want to do that. I think that what I have to offer as a father goes way beyond just what I'm able to provide financially. Now, I'm not trying to downplay people's needs to earn an income so they can have shelter and food and utilities for their family. There does have to be some balance, but I do think that it is, potentially harmful for somebody to operate under those assumptions where they were laid off for 3 months and they couldn't earn an income and they experienced a different kind of hardship within the house for those 3 months. I don't think you can just say like, okay, that's all the confirmation that I need. The only value that I bring to the family is directly tied to my paycheck.
Yeah, it sounds like when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and you shouldn't take that one moment at a time and stretch it out along a lifetime. What are some emotional patterns or triggers that you've noticed in the fathers that you coach?
Yeah, I think probably the most common thing is falling into a groove where, as a father that's working a full-time job and they're dealing with a fair amount of stress at their job, that when they come home, they want to be a good dad and they want things to be smooth sailing and peaceful when they get home, right? It's like things can be hard and challenging at work. So when you come home, you want it to feel like a safe haven. But the reality is, if you've got young kids that are learning how to deal with emotions and learning how to communicate, things just aren't always easy when you've got young kids. And so when a dad has expectations of, work is hard and stressful, and home needs to be calm and safe so I can recover, I think that can set them up for an extra set of challenges when they come home, and maybe some reality hits them where there is a kid having a temper tantrum. And so I think it's really common for dads to desire harmony and peace. And when things don't go that way, it can bring an extra level of frustration that can put them back into that sort of reactive state that we talked about earlier. And so instead of having that expectation of man, work is really hard when I come home, I just need it to be really calm, I think it's worth setting proper expectations, knowing that kids are going to have age appropriate reactions and behaviors. And so you go into the situation going like, you know what, I'm going to do what I can as a dad to create, a smooth and peaceful environment when I get home. Knowing that, you know what, things don't always go to plan. So like, how am I going to handle that as a dad if things don't go the way that I want them to? Like, what's my backup plan? And like walking through the door with, in my opinion, those are like some realistic expectations of what might happen. Now all of a sudden we're not as caught off guard. And it's like, okay, I've got a backup plan because I realize that this might happen and I'm going to do A, B, and C to sort of help things calm down and get things back to the way that I hope they'd be, calm and happy and just enjoying family life.
Oh, yeah. What Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face, right?
That's right. That's right.
But, we are the universe, fractal holographic universe, the big image, all contained in the one image, right? So just like the world has ebbs and flows, springs and winters, summers and falls, we have that as well. It comes in the form of emotions. What is emotional regulation?
Well, in my opinion, I think emotional regulation is first and foremost something that we as parents want to model for our kids, right? It's really hard to tell kids and to set up these expectations for how they're supposed to handle their emotions when we're not doing that as a parent, right? I think the do as I say, not as I do thing, you're setting yourself up for failure as a parent. So, emotional regulation to me is making space for emotions. Like it is a part of human existence that we're going to have emotions. And emotions aren't bad. They treat it like information, right? Like it doesn't have to be good or bad. And I think the number one thing that we can do as a father for our kids is just to let them know, like, whatever it is that you're feeling, like it's okay to feel that. And to not try to come in and fix things or tell them why they don't have to feel that way. Just something as simple as like, wow, that sounds hard. Right? Like, Randolph, like put yourself in that situation and just say like that you just listed off like this really, brutally difficult morning that you had and you're venting for like 5 minutes and you get it all out. And I let there be 3 seconds of silence. Wow. Randolph, that sounds hard. Can you feel that?
Yes. Yeah. It added a sense of sincerity.
Because it's real. Like I felt it as I said it. Like and you didn't vent anything before we started airing. So like that's all made up. But like when you put yourself in that situation to just like create this like really safe and welcoming space for your kids and where they know that they can show up with their emotions and you're not going to tell them that they're silly for feeling that way or here's a way that you can stop feeling that, it creates like this feeling of safety and your kids are going to feel supported. And that to me is the best and the first step that we should take when it comes to emotional regulation.
Yeah. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I know the word sincere, it derives from the Latin word sincere, which means without cracks. What they used to do was the people that made vases, once it came out of the fire, some of them had cracks in them and some of them didn't. And what they would do is they would add different paste to it and paint over it to where it looked just like the ones without crack, but they would label some sincere, which means that, yes, this looks as beautiful as the other vase. However, the vase that's sincere, the vase that does not have cracks, when it falls, it won't break so easy. And it sounds like when you communicate with people, you are really building up that goodwill of sincereness for when you do fall, because you will ultimately fall, as everybody does. You don't crack, and that goodwill that you put in beforehand helps brace for that fall with your children and with your spouse.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah. So do you not have any strategies for rebuilding this if it's already crumbled, this emotional regulation?
Yeah, I do. And, something that we teach inside the Engaged Father Project, PNC, hashtag not an ad, not sponsored by the bank, but PNC, just a quick acronym, P for pause, N for name it, and C for choose. So it's real simple, and it's just a way that when we're feeling like really emotionally charged and like we're about ready to have that reaction, right? Like we can feel it coming. When we can increase our awareness about like how we operate, and we can kind of look in the past to see like how we've handled certain situations, we have to get honest with ourselves, right? We have to be willing to take that kind of first step out of our little bubble to be like, okay, I'm going to observe how I handle certain things. And once you start to do that, it's just like putting a crack in the door, right? Imagine like a dark room, and that door cracks a little bit, and there's a light on out in the hallway, and it just starts to let like a little bit of light in. That first bit of awareness is that crack in the door that starts to illuminate that room. And so when we can catch ourselves like, I'm about to do that thing again where I fly off the handle, or I tell people why I don't deserve to be treated that way because I try so hard and you have no idea what I've sacrificed, and like all that stuff. Pause, pause, stop, and just like take one intentional breath. Like whatever works for you. There's a whole bunch of different simple and very effective ways that we can use breathing to kind of calm down our nervous system. But like 4 seconds in through the nose and 6 seconds out. Just give yourself 10 seconds to just pause. And that will immediately start to sort of let things calm. And then the N means name it, which is where you just name whatever it is that you're feeling. You're feeling angry, sad, disrespected, whatever. Just putting a name to that emotion that you're feeling really strongly inside, that starts to shift parts of the brain. So fear, like that fight or flight response that comes from a part of the brain called the amygdala. And when we can name something, when we stop and like think like, okay, what is it that I'm feeling right now? Like, oh, it's anger. You're starting to engage the prefrontal cortex part of your brain. And so we're bringing like the logic part of our brain like back online, and we're getting out of just that fight or flight part of our brain. And then C stands for choose. And that's just choosing your response. So like it's react on one side of the coin, and then it's responding on the other side of the coin. And for me, responding brings intention. And an intention of like, how do we want to handle tough situations? How do we want to model handling stressful events for our kids? Because they're watching and they're learning. And like, yes, you might have a conversation later on down the road and you're giving them advice on how to handle stress, but they're going to learn way more by watching how you handle stress. And so when it comes to that C and making a choice, it's like, you know what? How do I want to respond right now in a way that is showing my kids a healthy way on how to handle stress or tension or conflict, whatever you may have. So PNC, pause, name, and choose.
Man, I'm just gonna see the PNC Bank logo whenever I find myself in that situation, right? If you're a visual learner, and just know that when you bank with PNC, you always get a good return. So your program says, all right, you can help people with transformations like this, specifically fathers, without sacrificing their career success. How?
Well, it would be to use whatever time that you have with your kids to use it wisely and to be very intentional with it is like really the oversimplified answer with it. So if you're a working dad and you really feel like you're working a lot of hours, like I would say it's worth taking the time to think about like, okay, I'm trying to provide. Am I over providing? Am I trying to like earn 7 figures so we can like travel the globe and like take European vacations, multiple times a summer? Like I would say, ask yourself, like, is it worth the trade? Is my overextending myself at work worth whatever the return on that is going to be? And that's a hard question to ponder, but that's a great place to start. On the other side, let's say you're working really long hours and you're just trying to cover the basic needs for your family. And so it's like, look, if I decrease my work, my kids won't be able to, have clean clothes or, the lights on at night or have food in their stomachs. Like, okay, like that's in a position where we can't really be flexible. So in that situation, I would say like, what time do you have with your kids and how can you maximize that? And that just comes down to being really intentional. And, when I work with people in the program, we start out by, setting the target for the type of dad that they want to be. A lot of parents have goals when it comes to finances or career goals. It's common, right? Like most people have that. But in my experience, most parents don't have a goal in mind for the type of parent that they want to be, other than I'm a good dad, right? What kind of dad do you want to be? I want to be a good dad. Well, okay. Everybody does for the most part. What is good like mean to you? Because it probably means something different to others than it does to me. So like, let's get really clear on the type of dad that you want to be. And there's a handful of ways that we can arrive at that. But one thing that's really kind of simple and easy is think about your kids and they're 18 or 19 and they're going to move out of the house and they're going to go to college. How would you hope that your kids would describe you as a dad to their new college roommate? And answer that question. And I can tell you for me, I hope that answer is that I was supportive, that they felt seen as a kid, and that they felt unconditionally loved. And so when you set a target like that, then you can start to kind of reverse engineer what that would look like in day-to-day actions, right? And I talked about it earlier when I asked my kids for feedback on how did I handle a tough situation. I do that because I want them to feel seen as a member of this family, right? I don't expect them to just be a little soldier that just does whatever I tell them to do. If I'm doing something and they think that I could be doing it a better way, I want them to be able to communicate that to me. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Like I'm not talking about being spineless and letting our kids like steer the ship and they get to make all the choices. But I do hope that they feel comfortable enough and confident enough to be able to provide me with feedback on how they would like to see me handle the situation. So that's just like one example of how coming up with a goal allows us to be able to determine what we can do on a day-to-day basis in support of that goal, which is way easier to take those small bites than it is to be a good dad. And I'm putting air quotes around good dad, because who decides what a good dad is? Are you looking around, are you keeping up with the Joneses and you're just trying to, be on par with what you see other dads doing around you? I don't want to base how I show up as a parent. I don't want to base that on what I'm seeing other people do, because that's their choice. I want my choice to be my choice.
Let's say everything that you're saying is really resonating with somebody. What's the first step that they should take after this episode?
Well, I would say go to Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and look up the Engaged Father Project. I'm really leaning heavily into Instagram because a couple weeks ago I had a post go full blown viral. It's the first time it's ever happened where it got like 500,000 views. So
Wow.
it's been super fun to see that. And the comments on this post are, man, like some of them bring tears to my eyes in the best way possible. The post was about, I was listening to a father that was in his 70s. This was at a men's meetup group. There's like 100 fathers in the room, and there were 5 fathers up on stage that were all in their 60s and 70s. And the first guy that talked, he was in his 70s, and he said, "Trust me, when you get to my age, you won't wish that you had more stuff, and you won't wish that you had more personal time to yourself. You're going to wish that you had more time with your kids." So he's like, if you're a dad and you've got kids now, like, make the change, do what you can to soak that up, because when it's gone, you're really going to miss it. So that's been a really fun process to kind of watch how that message is resonating with people, and so many, fathers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers showing up in the comments saying like, look, this is true. Like, I did my best. I worked hard. But I realized once it was too late that this time that we have with our kids is so precious, and you don't realize how much you're going to miss it until it's gone. And at that point, it's too late. So it's this sort of wake up call message where it's just like, hey, make the best of the time that you have with your kids right now. And it's been really fun to see that. So, if you could jump over to Instagram and like send me a message, like, let's talk. I offer a free 5-day program that I called the Engaged Father Jumpstart. And I will work with people one-on-one. It's 5 meetings, 5 consecutive days, 30 minutes a day. And there's no cost. So people can go to jumpstart.theengagedfatherproject.com and they can sign up for that free program there. And there is real value that comes from it. It is not a strung along sales pitch. My goal is to over deliver value to people at no cost to them. And if they love what they got from that experience, then yeah, we'll have a conversation about what it would look like if people want to continue working with me and jump into one-on-one coaching or the 8-week program. Like, yes, of course, I'll share that with them if they're interested, but there really is no strings attached. So, it is limited because I only have so much capacity to do that because it is live and it's one-on-one. So I would encourage people to take advantage of that offer because it is something that I can only do so much of in a given period of time, and it won't last forever.
Okay. Last questions, Jon. Favorite vacation?
Ooh. Family trip up to Lake Erie. I started going with my wife and her family when none of us had kids, and our families have grown, and it's become a tradition with my family. So it's one of those vacations where we've done it so many times, and like we know like the beats that we're gonna hit, but it doesn't get old. We go up there, we have so much fun, and the family gets to just reconnect, and our kids are growing. So like our experience as parents is changing because they're having different interactions every time we go up because it's an annual trip. So I love that. It's not extravagant, but it's heart filling for sure.
What should somebody do if they check out their vacation, that location, Lake Erie? What should they definitely do?
Well, there's there's touristy things up there. Like they have one of the best amusement parks in the country up there. It's called Cedar Point. So I would say that's a definite must. There's good fishing up on Lake Erie. Just like the temperature is great in the summer. It's, I live in Ohio, so it's not like we don't have to drive all that far to get there. So it's convenient for me, or for us as a family rather. But it's just low key, right? It's more about kind of blocking out the space and the time to just be a family together. Like we go and, we'll do go-karts and do some things like that. They have a cool like drive-through animal safari where like a giraffe will stick its head in your sunroof and like eat pieces of lettuce out of your car. And they got these like giant animals that are like sticking their head in your windows, like a full-grown buffalo. Like it's wild. Like, and we'll do that every single year. But in all honesty, it's just having a dedicated block of time where the four of us can be a family and just be together. And then like we sprinkle in some of those other activities, but it's mostly just hanging out by the pool and enjoying the time.
What's your definition of success?
Oof, man, Randolph, I know we're coming up at the end of our time, but that's a question I could go on and on about. Success. Well, I can tell you that it has changed drastically for me over the past couple years. Success is being that ideal version of the father that I want to be for my kids. It is supporting my wife in the most loving and caring way that I can. And it's leaving the world better than I found it. Yeah. When I think about the work that I'm doing with these fathers and how they are making choices and changes that will redirect their family tree, and they're breaking generational habits that will continue forward generationally. And there will be kids that feel the positive effects of the work that we're doing, and that work will outlive me, right? There's going to be kids that have a different upbringing because of the work that I did with their great grandfather or whatever. And I won't ever be alive as those kids, but they're going to feel the effect of the work that we did together. And man, like I'm leaving humanity better than I found it. And that puts so much wind in my sails just to be in service of something so impactful. And that is my why, Randolph.
Oh yeah, as the twig bends, so grows the tree. Is easier to mold clay than it is to chisel stone. And the younger they're able to take these strategies and tactics and apply it to the younger men and women in the family, the more it'll resonate throughout generations and generations to come. Is there a question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, Randolph, I think you did great. I appreciate the time. I've loved our conversation, and I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. One more time, let people know who you are, what you do, and how they can get in touch.
Yeah. Jon Hord, founder of the Engaged Father Project. You can go to theengagedfatherproject.com. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at the Engaged Father Project. And if you want to jump in and get a taste of the work that I do and see for yourself how powerful this can be just within a span of 5 days, go to jumpstart.theengagedfatherproject.com and sign up there. And there, if you go to that little landing page and scroll down to the bottom, there is a video where I read a letter from a father that went through this free 5-day program. And it is an incredible letter that he wrote to his kids. And I would encourage everybody to go check it out. It's awesome.
All right. Make sure you go check out that letter. Thank you so much, Jon Hord, for coming up on the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. Once again, I have been your host, Randolph Love III. And until next time, don't play with it. Stay with it until you make pay with it. This is the Entreprenudist Podcast, signing off.